न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्व संकल्प सन्यासी सर्व संकल्प सन्यासी योग आरूढ़ः तदा उच्यते योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी 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 योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते। ऑनलाइन ओके one person यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते। ऑनलाइन
यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते।
यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते।
यदा हि इन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते।
यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योगारूढ़स्तदोच्यते।
यदा हि इन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मसु अनुसज्जते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी
Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi
योगारूढस्तदुच्यते
Yogarudhastadochyate. Synonyms: Yada, when, he, certainly, na, not, Indriyartheshu, in sense gratification, na, never, Karmasu, in fruitive activities, Anusajjate, does necessarily engage, Sarva Sankalpa, all material desires, Sannyasi, renouncer, Yoga Arudha, elevated in yoga, Tada, at that time, Uchyate, is said to be. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: a person is said to have attained to yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Translation with repetition: a person is said to have attained to yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Am I audible? Jagannath Tirtha Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So we are on the 4th verse of 6th chapter entitled Sankhya Yoga. Yesterday Balaram Prabhu had got a slide which said the acronym for this chapter was EASY. And I don't remember the verse numbers, but the first few verses were talking about enemy or friend, E. Then the A stands for Ashtanga Yoga. The S was for success or failure. And the Y was for the topmost yogi. That will come in this chapter. So we are in the first section of enemy or friend, but we are yet to reach there. And that is something which is very powerful, which Krishna will reveal in the next two verses, 5th and 6th. And they are very, very powerful. Actually, those subtle nuances which Krishna has brought about our own mind a software which all of us we possess, yet we know very little about it, is something very striking. But today we are seeing another interesting verse which is talking about the yoga ladder. Yesterday in the purport it was mentioned about the three different yogas: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, which is the topmost. And there was a picture of the ladder which was very difficult to climb. And also in the verse yesterday we had seen those two words, Arurukshur and Yoga Rudhasya. Arurukshu, who has just begun the yoga, and Yoga Rudhasya, who has attained the perfection, who has climbed the summit, has reached the pinnacle. Today's verse also has the same word, Arurudhasya. Let's do a little deep dive. Let's understand the translation. A person is said to have attained to yoga. Mind you, this person is said to have attained to yoga. So it is attaining to the state of yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So we join different yoga schools with the goal of attaining yoga or learning yoga. Here Krishna is telling, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is telling that a person is said to have attained to yoga. That means who has not attained, who wants to attain that state, whatever that state be, called yoga, then he has to do certain things. Let's see the verse more closely. There are many interesting things in this verse which Krishna is telling. Yadahi nindriya artheshu na karmasu anusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhas tadochyate. Any Sanskrit verse when you take, and if you come across this word yada, the first thing that you should do is look for tada. These are like in our computer language, when we were learning any language, they teach you a if loop. If this condition is met, then something will happen. So it is like that. Yada hi nindriyartheshu na karmasu anusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhas tadochyate. If you're not paying attention, then tada may be hidden. Tadochyate is a sandhi. Tada uchyate has become tadochyate. So yada, the first word of the verse is yada, when. That means if these conditions are satisfied, and then there is a modifier used as he, certainly. Yada hi nendriya artheshu na karmaswa anusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhas tadochyate. So tada, at that time, uchyate, it is said to be that the person has elevated in yoga. It is said to be. Krishna is not telling that it is my opinion or I am saying like this. Tadochyate, it is said by whom? By the people who have attained yoga, by the learned scholars. Kavibhir iditam. We sing that song. Tava kathamratam tapta jivanam kavibhir iditam kalmashapa. Shravana mangalam srimadaatatam. Bhuri brunatiye bhuri dajana. So kavibhir iditam kalmashapaham. It is ascertained or it is concluded by Kavibhir, by the learned scholars. Similarly, it is said by the acharyas, by the seers of the truth. At that time, a person is considered to be yoga arudha, elevated in yoga. When he has done the following things. What are those following things? So a person is said to have attained to yoga when he has renounced all material desires. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. Sarva Sankalpa is translated by Prabhupada as all material desires. The word Sankalpa is used in the Vedic literature for determination as well. So then how can it be material desires? It can be. Imagine if you are there in a race where you are at the starting point and you are seeing the finishing line. Have you participated? You are the athletic person. Race. 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters. So the beginning stage where you are taking your stance, and you're seeing the finish line. You've not reached there, but you have made up your mind that you will reach there. So Sada, what is that? Sarva Sankalpa Sannyas. Sarva Sankalpa. So we, in our mind also, we form desires to attain certain state, to reach a destination, position. It could be a state, whatever it is. Even if I have not reached there, those desires. But Krishna is telling, having renounced all material desires. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyas. Then he's telling, he neither acts for sense gratification. Yadahi Nendriya Artheshu. Artheshu is for that goal, for the objective. For that for word used is that's the destination. What am I working for? I'm working for XYZ. So he neither acts for sense gratification. Yadahi Nendriya Artheshu. And then the third criteria, condition is nor engaging in fruitive activity. Nor engages in fruitive activities. Nor karmas ko anusajjate. If one does these three things, yada, tada, yoga rudhas padochyate, then he is considered to have attained to yoga. So a person is considered to have attained to yoga when these three things are not there. What are those? Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasa, having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification, yada hi nendriyartheshu, na karmasu anusajjate, nor engages in fruitive activities. Very simple verse. But when we break it down, we realize that there is profound depth and a lot of unpacking that needs to happen in these verses which Krishna is talking. This dialogue which is happening between Krishna and Arjuna is not ordinary. These are all transcendental dialogues, not meant for Arjuna really, meant for all of us. Meant for awakening us from this dormant state of our consciousness, which is sleeping. And to do that, Krishna in various ways is giving these instructions based on those questions which Arjuna is very mercifully asking on behalf of all of us. So interestingly, all the chapters when we read in Bhagavad Gita, first thing that we should see is if this chapter begins with Arjuna's question or is it Krishna's answer at the beginning. And this chapter is Krishna's answer. There is no question asked by Arjuna. Yet this is considered to be a new chapter. That means it's a continuation of what Krishna was telling in the 5th chapter, and he continues in this chapter. So 5th chapter actually, if you remember, he has spoken about the peace formula, how one can be peaceful in this material world. And before that, he had mentioned briefly about Sankhya Yoga, and Krishna continues in the 6th chapter, 1st verse. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha. Sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. So sometimes our understanding about certain words based on our upbringing and association with material things are imperfect. For example, when somebody is a sannyasi, we usually think he must be wearing saffron robe, he must be having some like kamandalu and one danda, and he'll have beard. He should not be living in a house. He should not be doing anything. He'll just come, he'll say maybe some enlightening words, take some fruits, and he'll go. He's a sannyasi. But that is why when we read Bhagavad Gita and understand what Krishna is telling, then our misunderstanding and misinterpretation of words vanish. So the Lord is telling one who's unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. So a person who's renounced doesn't mean that he has renounced his activities. He is acting, but he is unattached to the fruits of his work. And who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, nor he who lights no fire and performs no work. So if you have a conception that a sannyasi will not light any fire or do any work, that's not the right understanding. And then he's telling what is called renunciation is the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. Now this is another revolutionary concept. For one who can For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. A person is considered to be renunciant, and it is same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. So you can either renounce the material world or you can link yourself with Krishna. And as per Krishna, they both are the same. Some people try to renounce understanding the nature of this material world and think they have attained a great state, but Krishna is telling the same state can be attained by linking oneself to Krishna. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. And this is a very hard hitting, no matter whosoever in this world claims that he or she is a yogi, yogini, whatever it is. First fundamental attribute or a characteristic of a yogi is that unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification, unless he has renounced that, he cannot be considered as a yogi. And then we saw yesterday's verse, for one who is a neophyte, what is the recommended? Work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. And now we are in this verse. Because to understand the context is so important. You can go on talking about different verses and then you don't really get the context. Then it really doesn't make sense. And now here Krishna is giving further attributes, how one can attain to yoga, or what if you follow, you can attain to the state of yoga. 3 things he's telling. But sometimes we don't really understand the difference between these 3 things, or they all look the same. Having renounced all material desires. So remember this word, material desires. Sarva sankalpa sannyas. Second, he neither acts for sense gratification. Yada hinendriya artheshu. Third, nor engages in fruitive activities. Na karmasva anusajjate. Material desires, sense gratification, and nor engaging in fruitive activities. Na karmasva anusajjate. Are they all the same? Are material desires, sense gratification, fruitive activities, are they same? If they are different, what is the difference? If they are same, why Krishna is using 3 words for expressing the same things? So if we read the verse 2-3 times and ask ourselves this question, why Krishna is repeating? He could have said, if these all 3 things are same, in one word, something, so no sense gratification, or who has renounced all material desires, or who's not engaging in fruitive activities, but he's listing these 3 separately. That means all these 3 are important. And a very brilliant purport. Today morning we were reading one purport which had about 3 paragraphs. And after the purport was read, the beginning when we were reading the purport, I was telling pay attention. Yet it is very difficult to pay attention. This purport, relatively small. How small, I'll tell you, and we will deep dive into this purport. Powerful purport. But what happens is, when we come to a class, when we are not mentally prepared, or when we think maybe I should just sit and my presence, physical presence, will not ensure I'm questioned, then the intent behind sitting in the class is lost. So we sit, but there is no intent in understanding what Krishna is telling. There is no intent or eagerness in making an attempt to understand Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad. So what happens is, the next class when we come, either we don't have focus or a clear context understanding, or we lack because we have forgotten the link. So it all looks different. Even if it is a dialogue which is happening between 2 people, they're continuously talking for 45 minutes. That means it is all linked. But since I have, in my mind, I have lost the link, it looks very different. So having said these 3 things, let's see how Prabhupada beautifully talks about these 3 things in his purport, which is only 5 lines. Yeah, that's just 5 lines. And I'll tell you that, we will see that. I'll repeat one more time. Having renounced all material desires, sarva sankalpa sannyasa, he neither acts for sense gratification, yada hinendriya artheshu, and na karmasu anusajjate, nor engages in fruitive activities. If he does that, sarva sankalpa, and then yoga rudhas tadochyate. Then he said to be have attained to the yoga rudha, or he has is said to have attained to the state of yoga. Let's see the purport. Brilliant purport. As I said, there are 5 lines. I'm just going one by one so that you can see this purport and appreciate how Prabhupada explains this as to how we can apply it in our life and understand really, assimilate this. First line of the purport. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. You see, this sentence, we read this line. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. And we moved on to the next line. But if you pause and pay attention to what Prabhupada is telling, as Prabhupada many times says that these are dictation of the Supreme Lord, who's personally guiding me to explain this. And these are not my words. And these words are coming from his Vani with the help of a dictaphone where he is giving these instructions, hearing the commentaries of different acharyas. So it is actually not different from the Lord, because it is transcendental words which he has heard, which he has realized, he is putting it so that we take advantage of this. So here it is mentioned, when a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. See, one has to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And if you engage, then what will happen? The 2 commas, he is pleased in himself. The first fundamental characteristic of a person engaged in transcendental loving service, he experiences bliss. He feels pleasure, satisfaction within. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahituki apratihata ye atma suprasidati. So it doesn't matter who you are, old, young, middle-aged, semi-middle-aged, before middle-aged, about to become adult, teenager, adolescence, whatever, whichever state you are in. Savai pumsam paro dharmo, whatever your age may be, if you engage in devotional service to the Lord, yato bhakti radhokshaje, what kind of devotional service? Ahetuki apratiyata. Don't expect anything in return. Don't make it as a business or a transaction that I am doing this, oh Lord, remember this and satisfy all my desires. That's not devotional service. That's a transaction which we do, usually which we do in material world. When we go and meet some people, usually we will have some motive, agenda. Okay, if I do this things to this person, maybe he'll help me in this way. Not with that mode. Ahetuki apratihata, uninterruptedly, without interruption and continuously. If these 2 things we take care, then Krishna says, Bhagavatam says, ye atma suprasidati, he becomes completely satisfied. Prabhupada is telling, when a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself. He is pleased in himself. What happens if you are pleased in himself? Then you will no longer be engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. So sense gratification and fruitive activities have a deep connection, but they are not the same. That is why they are in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. So when a person is not satisfied within, when a person is hungry, for example, he will look for food. He will hunt somewhere or other, wherever there is food available, he'll go and he will try to feed his belly. But if he is satisfied already, if he is filled, his belly is filled, no matter how much you give him, whatever may be the most palatable dish, he'll not be able to relish it. He may, maybe just for the sake of formality, he may take a little and put it in his mouth. Beyond that, he can't do. He will not hanker. There is no hankering. So here, if he is pleased in himself, then he's no longer engaged in sense gratification. What is this business of sense gratification? I know we have exactly 25 minutes to wrap up, but these concepts, if it is clear in our mind, it keeps coming in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita again and again. Similar things get repeated. The reason these are repeated, because our dull mind, which is conditioned means it wants to gratify senses. Conditioned means it wants to do fruitive activities. It doesn't want to come out of it. No matter how much we hear, we go back and continue doing because our mind, intelligence, these are all faulty now. It wants, it is looking, and we are not satisfied within. The experience of true bliss is not there. That is the constitutional characteristic or position of a spirit soul, that it is Sat Chit and Ananda. It is full of bliss. It is filled with transcendental happiness. Yet when you are not experiencing that, then you are looking for happiness outside. You are looking for sense gratification. Senses are the outward avenues or means which the Lord has given to experience this matter, experience this material world. To perceive matter, what we use is our senses: eyes to see, ears to hear, tongue to taste, touch to feel the form, and nose to smell, so that we get a perception of this material world. So when the satisfaction is missing, then the senses are agitated. They look, where can I find gratification? Where can I find happiness? Where is that thing which can give me some titillation or happiness? And when it is not available, or when we see, now I have that sankalpa I have made, if I indulge my sense in this sense gratification business, I will be happy. Then what I do is I engage in fruitive activities. I do some activities. There is a result I'm expecting. I'm hoping that if I do this, I'm going to get this result. That result drives me. That becomes the motivation for me to engage in fruitive activities or sense gratification. Very interestingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Krishna himself, when he came and he demonstrated how to lead a life of a devotion, mind you, he spent 18 years of his life, 18 long years in Puri, in one room in Gambhira, the place where he used to live in Puri. It is at the max 10 by 10 feet. He was not hankering for any sense gratification outside, yet he was experiencing deep ecstasy within. So the first fundamental myth, or the first fundamental understanding that we need to have, is happiness doesn't lie in outside. When we pursue our senses to gratify, when we pursue this gratification business, it is a momentary, illusory sense of happiness which we experience, but it is temporary, and the result of that is very, very, it is scary. It binds us in this material world. We will see that very beautifully how this is brought up elsewhere in Bhagavatam. But let's see the 5 lines of purport. This is the first line. So how Prabhupada explains these things. So this has to be absorbed. This is not to be read when we are about to sleep, or when we are in a rush, when we are in a hurry. We just read and then we keep going. It will not touch us. If it has to touch, then you have to go a little slow and try to assimilate and absorb. Next line, Prabhupada is saying, otherwise one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. So if you are 2 things which is mentioned in the first line, one has to be engaged in devotional service, and by that engagement one experiences bliss, is pleased in himself. If these 2 things are met, these 2 conditions are met, then there is no longer any hankering for sense gratification or fruitive activities, right? So if these 2 things are done, then there is no hankering for sense gratification or fruitive activities. But if somebody doesn't do that, then one must be engaged in sense gratification. You don't have a choice. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. So this is the next line of the purport, where Prabhupada is saying, otherwise one must be engaged in sense gratification. You need engagement, right? Nahi kasyat kshamapi jatu tishtati akarma krit. And you're not engaging in Krishna's service, and hence you're not experiencing bliss. So you automatically look for engagement, and that engagement that comes is in the form of sense gratification. You can't remain without being engaged. Then Prabhupada is saying, without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. So what kind of engagements you'll do if you're not engaging in Krishna consciousness? You will think how I can satisfy myself. Somebody may say, I'm an altruist. I don't believe in my own self happiness or aggrandizement. Okay, extended selfish activities. Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangha, HSS, Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangha, Tamil Sangha, Telugu Sangha, Oriya Society. All these societies are formed because we identify ourselves with the bodies as certain as Hindu, as we are from the same country, we are born with the same mother tongue, the same motherland. Let's do something good for our own community. This is extended selfish activities. So when we don't have Krishna consciousness, we need engagement, we need sense gratification. Either we do it either for our own selfish activities centered around ourselves or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. This is a but. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. Actually, it is not easy to get detached from sense gratification unless one knows how to act for satisfaction of the Lord. A Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. And the last line of the purport, as I said, there are 5 lines only. 5th line is, one who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. So if you don't have realization, then you have to mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. Not at all easy to become desireless or to become, to artificially or not artificially, to renounce material world without Krishna consciousness is very difficult. So he must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. If you remember the first verse, I told that who is called renunciation is the same as yoga. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga. So either you renounce the material world or you link yourself with the Supreme Lord. Renouncing, but no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. No one can become a yogi without renouncing the desire for sense gratification. You cannot call yourself a yogi if you have not renounced this. So this is why Prabhupada is telling one who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. You see, if you unpack these sentences or you pay attention closely, they are all linked. They are there is a systematic way Prabhupada has given this. How one has to be engaged in devotional service, then he'll experience transcendental bliss or pleasure, and then he'll no longer be interested in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. If he is not doing that, then he must be engaged in sense gratification. Since we are always looking for engagement, every moment we are engaged. So if he is not doing that, then he must be engaged in sense gratification. And then without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended self-activities. What is that sense gratification or fruitive activity? It is self-centered or selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being, it is not easy, elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. Yesterday during the class, we had seen the conversation between yesterday is Saturday. Hari? No. Yesterday, Balaram Prabhu, he didn't talk about Shyam Sundar. Kardam? And? Hari? Online, do you remember yesterday what was the conversation which was happening? People here only don't know how the online people will. What was the conversation?
Yes, Prabhuji. I think conversation was Sundar Prabhu went to Russia, and he was not knowing that he is having Bhagavad Gita in his bag when security started checking, and there was a Bhagavad Gita. That was the, I think, gist of it.
That was spoken by me, and I don't remember where I spoke that. Was it today morning or was it yesterday? There was nothing. Day before yesterday, maybe. Day before yesterday, when we were having the last day of Brajmandal Parikrama, there was that Kala Nadya that I was talking about. While explaining how devotees association is so valuable and precious, I spoke about how Bhagavad Gita entered into Russia.
Yes, yes.
Yesterday's class was taken by Balram.
Yeah.
And he had very beautiful theme called the law of counteraction. Now anything strikes? So what was the conversation between whom?
A small boy who was, I mean, he's playing the kite on top of the roof.
Okay.
Already the roof is falling down. I mean, he's not realizing that, but he's trying to fly the kite, and an elderly person who...
That example is right. After that, he went on to Bhagavatam to take a conversation between two exalted personalities.
Okay, the king and... okay.
Yes. King and?
Narada Muni.
Oh, great. You see how difficult it is for us to remember these things. Narada Muni and Prachina Bari. And he also spoke about Narada Muni and Prachitas.
Yes, Prabhu.
So these are, of course, if you don't know, I can understand. Some of the names may be unfamiliar, but these are all very, very wonderful descriptions from Srimad Bhagavatam, elucidating this, rarity of human life and how to achieve the perfection. I will continue from the same place where he was talking yesterday. A similar line when Narada Muni is instructing to Prachitas. Before I do that, the first line of the purport which Prabhupada is writing here. See, if you make notes, if you are serious, when you try to analyze and really understand what is going on, your appreciation for the subject will be very, very high. So that is why Bhagavatam says rapt attention. That is why a perfection of hearing comes from example like Parikshit Maharaj, who was cursed to die in 7 days. Imagine the state of a person when he knows that he has only 7 days left. So many kinds of thoughts can go on, right? I could not achieve this. Maybe I could have done this. I could have done that. And in those kind of trying circumstances, our attention span could be as low as possible. But not true. That's why these are the examples. Parikshit Maharaj heard perfectly. The perfection, the examples of perfect hearing is that of Parikshit because he heard it with rapt attention. Every single thing he was given, including creation, subcreation, time. These are all very, very complicated, and one can lose the whole interest because Sukadeva Goswami didn't start from Krishna's childhood pastimes. Came much later. 335 chapters are there in Bhagavatam, out of which 90 chapters are in 10th canto, which is roughly 1/4. But 3/4 are all other things. And initially, all those things which were going on are all very difficult subject matter, but they're all necessary for us to understand. So in the second chapter, when Arjuna had asked this question to Krishna, that what is the symptom of a man who is Sthita Prajna? Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasa samadhistasya keshava Sthitadhir kim prabhaseta kim asita brajeta kim. There are 4 questions in that. He wanted to understand a person whose intelligence is fixed, not wavering. How do I understand? What are the symptoms of that man? In response to that, when Krishna speaks, this is the first verse which talks about the symptom of a man who is Sthita Prajna. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani evatmana tushta Sthita Prajnasya tadochyate. Prajahati. Jahati is to drive away, to give up. Jahati and prajahati. Prajahati is completely giving up. What you have to give up? Prajahati yada kaman. Again, yada and tada is there in this also. Prajahati yada kaman. Kaman is this desires. Yada, this desires. When we give up prajahati yada kaman, where does this desire come from? Sarvan partha manogatan. From our fertile mind, brain, which is constantly producing desires. Desires which are only meant for sense gratification, independent of Krishna. Sarvan partha manogatan. Atmani evatmana tushta. So first you have to give up all those desires which are produced from the fertile brain, which are always meant for sense gratification. All, prajahati yada, all the desires. And atmani evatmana tushta. And one has to learn to be satisfied within. Sthita prajnasya tadochyate. Lord says he is considered to be the Sthita prajna. So the same word tadochyate. Here yoga rudhas tadochyate. Right? He is considered to be yoga rudha. I'll continue from the same place where yesterday Prabhu had left. Some very wonderful ideas are there. If we can meditate on these ideas for next 15 minutes, 10 minutes, I think this verse we can appreciate more, because there are three things which Krishna is telling we should give up: material desires, sense gratification, and fruitive activities. Tada yada, when we give up all these things, then we have attained the state of yoga. So one usual question which people ask is, what is a perfect life? Is the perfect life something where I aspire to become whatever my goal was in childhood? I became that person. I got married. I have a nice family. I am taking care of them, their needs. I have a nice house where they are taking shelter, and a nice car and insurance and other things that I should do so that they have a comfortable life. Is this a definition of a perfect life? Who can give a definition of perfect life? Because every definition has its own nuances. A person who is enjoying this material life, the so-called enjoyment, without seeing what is the real end of this life, may give a definition of a perfect life in the way he has understood. But here, a transcendentalist known as Narada Muni, who is also addressed as Bhagavan, because he always carries the Lord within his heart, is called Bhagavan Narada. He is giving a definition of a perfect life. So let's see what is the definition of perfect life given by Narada Muni. So he's telling Narada Vacha. He's talking to Prachetas. Tat janmatani karmani tad ayush tad manovachaha nrinam yena hi viswatma sevyate harireshwara. So he has used these words tat janma tani karmani tad ayush tan manovachaha nrinam yena hi viswatma sevyate harireshwara. So when one is engaging his janma, his birth, his karma, his ayus, his life, span of life, mind and words, in what? Sevyate harireshwaraha. Nrinam yena hi vishwatma sevyate harireshwaraha. So when one engages in devotional service of the Lord, that is considered to be perfect. The great sage Narada said, when a living entity is born to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller, his birth, all his fruitive activities, his lifespan, his mind, and his words are all factually perfect. So we seek perfection of life through these things, by our birth, by our activities, by the span of life that we have, by the mind, by vachaha, by our words. We don't know what to do and how to do. What should be done so that I can attain the perfection of life? And very beautifully, as I'm saying here, Narad Muni is telling how one can achieve perfection in life. Mind you, had it been some ordinary person like one of us who has given an opinion, we may not agree. But here it is spoken by Narada Muni, right? So it is very, very important. And why it is perfect to have all these things engaged in Krishna's service? What is the reason? Actually, that is very nicely explained. If you see this in the explanation of the purport, the beautiful purport, Prabhupada says, this material world is Dukkhalaya. First thing, why engaging in Krishna's service is perfection. It is called perfection of life. First reason for that is material world is Dukkhalaya. Where is it mentioned in Bhagavad Gita? Where is it? That is Janma Mrityu Jana Vyadhi Dukkha Dosanudarshan. This is Dukkhalayam. Abram Bhuvana Loko Punaravartina Sarjuna. पुनर्जन्म में नहीं आया यार. 8.15. Anybody online?
Yes, Prabhu. Mam upetyatu kauteya.
Punarjanma Dukkhalayam Asasvatam Napnuvanti Mahatmana Samsiddhim Paramam Gata. So 8.15, Krishna says this. Right? This material world is a place of misery. Dukkhalayam. What are we trying to search here? Happiness. Sukhalayam. Who is Krishna? He is the creator of this material world. Who knows the world more than any one of us? It's the creator himself. How has he described this world? He has described this world as Dukkhalayam. Yet what we are doing? We are looking for happiness. How we are looking for happiness? By the business of sense gratification. So that is why in the purport Prabhupada explains this material world is Dukkhalayam. Then he says our Janma is a miserable thing. We actually celebrate our birthday. We remember the day when we are born, but our Janma, birth, is miserable. One of the words that Narada Muni uses in that verse is birth. First thing is our Janma. Janma is miserable because we are packed up in our mother's womb for 9 months in a very miserable condition. Somehow we come out of it, and the labor pain that a mother experiences is extremely difficult. It's almost intolerable. And somehow we come out in the pool of blood, stool, and mucus, all the abominable things, and we consider that to be very glorious. Our Janma is miserable. Our karma, actions are horrible. Horrible actions, because it is all driven by our mind and senses, and we want to just go out and look for happiness the way we have defined happiness in our mind, and when we are doing that, the actions that we perform are called horrible. And mind and words are all disturbing elements. We can't even remember, we can't even think, sit, pay attention. Very, very difficult. Words, oh my God, can create havoc. And our mind and words are all disturbing elements. This is the precarious condition of a conditioned living entity. Very, very, very pitiable situation. So that is why in one of the purports of Bhagavad Gita in 1.30, actually Prabhupada writes, when a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? Many times this question comes, why me? Because all my attempts to become happy, to become successful, to become powerful, to become invincible, to become unconquerable, it gets thwarted. There is some force of material nature which comes and hits us very hard. And when that happens, and when we have defined, or we have in our definition of success and happiness, when we have defined these are the criteria, and when we meet failure, when we see that it is not happening, we see frustration. When a man sees only frustration in his expectation, he thinks, why am I here? That is why Prabhupada says in the purport, the above instruction by Narada Muni very nicely explains what is our real business. Prabhupada uses this word real business in many places. Yes, we are supposed to take care of our material duties. We have our dependents whose needs also I have to take care. Yes, I'm an Indian, I'm whatever it is, my identity is there. As part of that, I need to do some things. But what is our real business? What is the purpose of our birth? What is the purpose of our birth? And how our birth, actions, mind, and words, everything could be perfect. The word used here is Viswatma Sevyate Haririshwaraha. When we engage in service of Lord Hari, who is present as Super Soul, everything becomes perfect. And devotional service alone is the purpose of our birth. Everything else is subservient to this goal. See, when we engage in service of Lord Hari, who's present as Super Soul, then everything becomes perfect. And devotional service alone is the purpose of our birth. So this is the first argument which Prabhupada gives in the purport when Narada Muni is describing what is the perfect life. Right? Very next verse. Narada Muni is telling, Kim Janmavis Trivir Vehas Saukra Savitra Yajnikai Karma Bhir Bhatrai Proktai Pumso Pi Vibudhya Ayusaha. Here, interestingly, Narada Muni is going to talk about three kinds of births. Not one birth, three kinds of births. Kim Janmavis Trivir Veha Saukra Savitra Yajnikai. So if you read the translation, it is telling a civilized human being has three kinds of births. Of course, it refers to civilized human being. Civilized human being doesn't mean who's wearing a coat and tie or his in suit boots. No. A civilized human being is an Aryan who understands the progressive value of human life. He has three kinds of births. The first birth is by a pure father and mother, and this birth is called birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master, and this birth is called Savitra. The third birth, called Yajnika, takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. See, all these instructions, sometimes when somebody says or reads from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is telling that, don't engage in sense gratification, don't have material desires, or the third thing which is telling don't engage in fruitive activities, it looks like as if it's a suffocation. Why these restrictions are given to us? Well, the restrictions are given so that you can experience a higher state. To experience that higher state, certain prerequisites are required. And when you follow those prerequisites and follow the instructions of the scriptures, what you can experience is unlimited, unending, ever-increasing bliss. So here he's telling there are three kinds of births for a civilized human beings. First is the birth which is from our mother and father. Next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master. And this birth is called Savitra. So this is, that's how our material name gets changed. We identify ourselves with a name which is given by our spiritual master. It's a new life. It is meant to detach ourselves from the materialistic concepts of life. Spiritual master is our father and our mother is considered to be the scriptures. Then there is a third birth where one gets an opportunity to be engaged in devotional service to the Lord, to do the deity worship. Also is not a small thing. Yajnika takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Forget about human form of life. Even if you have got a lifespan of demigod, all the facilities to engage in sense gratificatory business, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. Even if it is a spiritual, somebody is practicing some spiritual life, but if he is not engaging in devotional service of the Lord or satisfying the Lord, that is also considered useless. I want to give you one example. I've got one more verse of Narada Muni, and with that we will close. For each of these verses, I've got one example. Like I spoke about the Dukhalaya Masaswatam part. In this verse, I want you to remember this very interesting purport. This happened in the life of a king by name Khatwanga. So in Bhagavatam, in the 9th canto, 9th chapter, 42 verse, Sukadev Goswami says to Parikshit Maharaj, how we aspire to have a long lifespan, and with that long lifespan of life, we want to engage in sense gratificatory business. But here is an example of a person. What is his position? He's a king, and what did he do? Bhagavatam is telling us to know. King Khatwanga was unconquerable in any fight. Almost, nobody can defeat him. So powerful he was. Requested by the demigods to join them in fighting the demons, he won victory. And the demigods, being very pleased, wanted to give him a benediction. So he helped the demigods. There is always this fight between demigods and demons which keep happening. And in this particular case, Khatwanga Maharaj helped the demigods, and the demigods became victorious. And they became very happy, and they wanted to give him a benediction. Look at the benediction which he's asking. King inquired from them about the duration of his life, how much time is left. And when he was informed that he had only one moment more, this one moment was by the calculation of the heavenly planet, which is some days in the materialistic calculation or earthly calculation. There, one day is our 6 months. So in that way, you can calculate how much is that one moment, but it will be a few days. When he heard this, immediately he left his palace and went to his own residence, where he engaged his mind fully on the lotus feet of the Lord. Where he engaged his mind fully on the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if it is one moment by the calculation of the demigods, if one perfectly engages that in service of the Lord, he understood the scarcity of time that he has. He didn't ask for, well, I have now become victorious, I have helped them, now these demigods are very powerful, let me take some time to sleep, relax, enjoy, indulge in sense gratification. Anyway, all these things they can easily fulfill or give. He asked how much time is there. When he heard it is just one moment, he came back. Whatever it is, he just saw this, immediately came where he engaged his mind fully on the lotus feet of the Lord. So this story in Bhagavatam, which is there, it's a very powerful, instructive story. The reason the story is mentioned in Bhagavatam, it's a real life story, is serve to satisfy Krishna. When we are reading this first canto, second chapter, there was one verse which comes, it says, Dharmasvanushtita pumsa visvaksena katha suyaha notpade tyadiratim shrama eva hi kevala. Shrama means useless labor, Prabhupada says. Shrama eva hi kevalam. It's only useless labor if we are not able to develop that attraction for Krishna by all kinds of activities, duties that we are performing. This is the purpose of human life. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. I think the verse that we were seeing in the morning Bhagavatam last week, there was something about paritoshanam. Samsiddhir haritoshanam, paritoshanam. It keeps coming. Since we have forgotten this blissful life, which we all used to experience in Goloka, now we have become accustomed to this life in the material world, where we are endeavoring hard, somehow or other, to have a long, healthy life. But doesn't matter how long we want to live, it is always interrupted by all these 4 problems: birth, death, old age, and disease, which are inevitable. It doesn't matter who you are, who you are and how powerful you are, whatever your position in birth may be. We're sure to face these things. So that is why, when we see this great devotees like Khatwanga Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, it doesn't matter how long is the duration of life. What matters is how efficiently we are using the time in hand in serving Krishna. Right? The next verse of Bhagavatam, which in this connection, very next verse, Narad Muni says, Yasmin Tushta Jagat Tushtam, this principle, how he is telling. Shrutena tapasa vakim, vachobhis chitta vrittivihi, buddhya vakim nipunaya, valenindriya radhasa. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities? The process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of the senses. So you see how important it is to engage in devotional service. Without devotional service, Shrutena tapasava kim, vachoves chitta vrittivhi, buddhyava kim nipunaya. You may be very extremely intelligent. You may be very good at, having, you can endure a lot of austerities. You can hear, memorize, you can speak eloquently. But what Narad Muni is telling, without devotional service, what is the meaning of all those things? In the power of the senses. I want to conclude with this one example for this chapter. This is from Krishna book, chapter 23. Prabhupada is talking. I'll read this, then I'll tell you what is the context, where it is coming. All their activities are useless because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, to understand Krishna. In spite of their advancement in Vedic knowledge and rituals, they do not understand Krishna. Therefore, their knowledge of the Vedas is superficial. So this is happening when Krishna and Balaram were in the forest, and they sent these cowherd boys to this Yagic Brahmanas who were busy performing this sacrifice, elaborate sacrifice with all the rituals. And when they went, this Krishna and Balaram, this cowherd boys, when they went, saying Krishna and Balaram are hungry, they didn't offer the foodstuff to them. So Prabhupada is writing in the purport, all their activities are useless because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas. Vedesh cha sarvair ahameva vedyam. Of all the Vedas, the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna, to understand Krishna. If you don't know that, and you are doing some yajna, you are doing some austerity, you are doing some rituals, you are doing so many activities, trying to control your mind, senses, it's all useless. In spite of their advancement in Vedic knowledge and rituals, they do not understand Krishna. Therefore, their knowledge of the Vedas is superficial. It's a very important thing to remember because, sometimes we don't really, we are busy with so many rituals which we have seen people performing, or we see in our friends and relatives, and we think maybe, if I do that, I'll be happy. But the purpose of all those things is to satisfy Krishna. So that is why when, the principle here is when Krishna is satisfied, everyone is satisfied. Right? Prabhupada, in the same chapter, he writes, these reactions are spontaneous. They did not have to be convinced of the importance of Krishna and Balaram. Immediately upon hearing their names, they became very anxious to see them. Being advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, they were performing the greatest form of mystic meditation. This is referring to those Yagic wives, the Brahmanas, Yagyapatnis. They were illiterate. They were not knowing Vedic rituals. They had no idea, but they were constantly hearing. And by being constantly hearing, being advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, they were performing the greatest form of mystic meditation. They packed all pots of prasadam and very eagerly went to the gopas to personally hand it over to Lord Krishna, neglecting all the restrictions of their family members. When they had darshan of the dearmost Lord Krishna, he entered into their hearts through their eyes. Lord appreciated their surrender and sacrifice and loving devotion, and later advised them to return back to the family. The Yagyapatnis did not want to leave the shelter of Lord's lotus feet, but the Lord assured them that their family would not reject them when they return. Yasmin tushte jagat tushtam. When Krishna is satisfied, everyone is satisfied. The reverse is not true. You may try to satisfy individually so many people, but despite doing all that, still so many people will remain unsatisfied and forget about Krishna being satisfied. And if Krishna is not satisfied, it's a useless business. That's what this Yagic Brahmanas are telling. And to conclude this further, Prabhupada writes this is a beautiful thing. To hell with our being born Brahmanas, to hell with our learning all Vedic literatures, to hell with our performing great sacrifices and observing all the rules and regulations, to hell with our family, to hell with our expert service in performing the rituals exactly to the description of scriptures, to hell with it all, for we have not developed transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the speculation of the mind, body, and the senses. So our first line of the purport was, when a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. You see the importance of engaging in devotional service and the futility of pursuing the sense gratificatory business or doing this fruitive activities or pursuing this material desires. We are still not convinced. I have more to say, but we're running out of time. These are meant not to, it is not that the scriptures are restricting us, suffocating us. No, actually, these are all regulated principles of freedom. To experience that higher happiness, you need to control the senses. Vidheya Atma, there is one line, verse in second chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Search for Vidheya Atma here. When we control our mind, intelligence, and senses, can we experience the higher state of bliss? Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishayan Indriyascharan Atma Vaser Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachyati. You see, this verse is very important. 2.64. One who cannot control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachments and aversion. Prasadam adhigacchati. To obtain the mercy of the Lord, prasadam adhigacchati, one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom. Raga dvesha vimukteshtu vishayan indriyascharan atma vaser vidhyatma. One who controls the senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. Vishayan indriyas charan. Charan is to walk. In the Vishayan indriyas, the indriyas are constantly going, they're walking towards Vishayan. And if you have to control over that indriyas, then he's telling you follow this regulative principles of freedom, and if you follow the regulative principles of freedom, you obtain the mercy of the Lord. Prasadam adhigacchati. And by that you can control the senses. I'll stop here. Very, very interesting verse. Depends how much you want to absorb and understand. This is very beautifully explained by Prabhupada. Any question, any thoughts, any comments? I had another very powerful thing to share, but I would refrain.
Prabhuji, you have explained that one who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder.
Mhm.
So I want to understand more here, Prabhu.
That is about the last line of the purport, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. What do you want to understand in this?
So when we are preaching to a person, and he is actually not at all he just listening, but he's not at all taking any of the interest. So in that case, how to preach, Prabhu? Like
that is, I think the question and what you are trying to seek answer are not in sync. So one who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. So this is referring to those people who are not engaged in devotional service, yet want to elevate themselves to the top rung of yoga ladder. Then they have to mechanically try to escape the desires, which is not easy. That's what Prabhupada is saying. So forget about preaching to someone and who's not interested. That comes later. This is about understanding how to achieve that state of perfection, how to reach the top of the yoga ladder. And as in the beginning of 6th chapter, it is mentioned there are two ways you can do it. Either you can try to restrain or renounce yourself, or you can link yourself to the Supreme Power. But linking, so you cannot be called a yogi unless you have renounced the desire for sense gratification. Not anything else, just the desire for sense gratification in the heart you should have renounced that. Then only you can be called as a yogi. Our process is the process of engaging in devotional service to the Lord. That is what I was explaining. Throughout this 1 hour, 10 minutes, I've only spoken about the benefits of engaging in devotional service and the futility of engaging in fruitive activities. Now, when we are preaching to a person, there are many factors which are involved. You can't directly, go to some, first you have to make them conversant with the letters of the language that you're speaking. Unless they are conversant with what you are speaking. Suppose I'm going to a foreign land, like I was in Mexico, and they speak in Spanish. And if I have to understand anything, or if I have to communicate, either I speak their language or they understand what I am saying. They should understand English. So if that is the case, I should first understand some words or phrases or the alphabets. Then I'm able to, I can make more sense of what they are saying. Otherwise, what you are saying and what the other person, materialistic person, is thinking, these are all Greek and Latin. They don't. So you don't have to jump into the conclusion of the Vedic scriptures at the first meeting. You have to understand their position. You have to understand their language. And in that same language, when the connection is established, then you have to tell them. It is not a overnight 1 second business where you speak to someone, he gets convinced, and the next moment he starts chanting, putting tilak, calling you, oh, you are great. so far I was living in a blind life. I mean, I was living in a darkness of ignorance. I've become enlightened. Thank you very much. You will not find such. So it requires, the first thing that you can do is, if you can create a favorable mood in him to hear, to receive this knowledge. So when that happens, when he comes and starts listening and hearing this instructions, because we have all different layers of misunderstanding and ignorance in our life from many births. For us also to come to this state, it took so much time. Then how can we expect someone else to become, Krishna conscious overnight? Patience is the key, and understanding the position and not being impatient. At the same time, doing some, giving some inspiration, either to chant or to hear, then we are doing our duties.
Yes.
Any other question? Bhagavad Tattva, bro.
No, Prabhu.
What were the three things that Krishna told at the beginning? Bhagavad Tattva, bro. Akhilash Ray, bro.
Prabhu,
Okay, who can tell? Forget about. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes. Is that so he knows all material
What's
desires.
her name?
One
Nia, she had two.
Ankit, can you go on mute?
That's why I have four.
Yeah, go ahead. Bhagavad Tattva, bro.
Yeah, bro. Once now renounce all material desires, he neither act for sense gratification nor engage in fruitive activities.
Then what will happen?
Attain to yoga. There is a yoga ruda stage.
Okay. So when does the desire to engage in sense gratification come? What is it that when a person doesn't have, that he feels the desire to engage in sense gratification?
When he's not doing the devotional service.
Okay.
And then yeah, it is either if we are not attracted to doing the devotional service, then we are engaged in
Why if we are not doing a devotional service, why will we be engaging in sense gratification? Who wants to answer?
Yes, bro. So when
No, not you, not you.
yes, bro.
Yeah.
When person is
Not you, Jagannath. Wait.
Yes, bro.
Yes,
Yeah.
Not.
We are naturally wanting to serve. So in one way or the other, if you're not serving the Lord, we are serving our senses, and we will like to, we'll be engaged in sense gratification otherwise.
One thing is missing in the answer, which I was looking.
Yes, Prabhu. That is the transcendental loving service of the God. When we are not doing the transcendental loving service of the Lord, then we are supposed to engage our senses into the sense.
That's what exactly she told. When we are not doing transcendental loving service, what is happening?
Then our senses will be
Why our senses will be looking for senses?
big,
Is the maximum. If you use that, maybe it will.
Maybe if we are not working for the satisfaction of Krishna, we are looking for the satisfaction of ourselves.
True, you are right. Why are we looking for satisfaction of senses when we are not looking for satisfaction of Krishna?
Because we're in illusion. trying to solve the problems.
No,
Actually,
all are true, but there is one thing which is happening. There is an in-between state. So when you are engaged in devotion, okay, Ankit, you want to try?
I think when we do not have Sthita Pragya stage, right, Prabhu?
No, Sthita Pragya is another concept. We spoke about it, but the reason so that's why, you have to, these concepts need to be very clear in our mind. These are not things to be just theoretically understood and we forget the class, then we forget about it. That's why summary sometimes helps, and that's what I'm trying to summarize. So when a person is fully engaged in transcendental loving service to the Lord, he becomes satisfied within. He becomes pleased within. That was the word which was there in the comma, in between the comma. He's pleased in himself. And since he's pleased, he's no longer engaged in sense gratification or fruitive activities. So the lack of satisfaction is the cause for looking for happiness elsewhere. That's why we go for sense gratification. You are right when you are saying that when we are not engaged in devotional service to the Krishna, we are engaging, but not directly, it is not related. You may not be engaged in devotional service, but there is a void which is created because you are not satisfied. And so there are two things. And you are looking for engagements. You always have to remain engaged, and you're not engaged in Krishna's service. And the second factor is you're not feeling happiness. There is no satisfaction. So you are looking to, indulge in your sense gratification. So sense gratification business with a goal, with an objective that it will satisfy me, it will give me pleasure, I engage. I do fruitive activities. And when I'm doing that, instead of, it is giving me happiness or pleasure, it actually binds me. So that is why Prabhupada, in the purport, is telling a person who has learned to experience happiness within. That's where the Sthita Pragya, that verse I was talking about from Krishna, he's telling Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atmani evatmana tushta Sthita Pragya Sthita Pragya. So the mind's desires, the mind's dictation, which when it comes that you can be happy by this state, there has to be prajahati. One has to give up that. All these are all illusory, false promises which are available in this material world. By this way, by that way, by this way, by this way, by doing this, all these things, by these adjustments, I can be happy. But he's telling prajahati yada. Give up. This is produced sarvan partha manogatan. This is produced from the fertile brain of your conditioned living entity. It is produced in your mind. Atmani evatmana tushta. Actually, a person who learns to satisfy himself within, like I gave the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In that place, he was experiencing higher state of bliss. Then I spoke about Narad Muni's those three instructions. What is the perfect life? When all our life, words, mind, everything is used in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Why? Because he told our birth is, this is Dukhalayam, and our birth is miserable. Sorry, this place is Dukhalayam, birth is miserable. And then the third thing he told is karmas are horrible. And then mind and words are disturbing elements. So with all these things, sometimes a living entity feels frustration. Why am I here? He's trying hard, he's following all the promises, whatever has been told, and yet he's experiencing that miserable condition. That is why Narad Muni is telling that when we engage in Krishna's service, Yasmin Tushti Jagat Tushtam. And that the first line he says, then I saw that. It is born to engage in the devotional service of the reason you are born is to engage in that. But instead of that, you are doing all this, whatever business. Then the next verse, Narad Muni is telling that serve to satisfy Krishna. There are three kinds of births that he told about, that he spoke about. First birth from our father and mother. The second birth is from spiritual master and Vedic scriptures. The third birth, when one becomes qualified to engage in devotional service to the Lord, Krishna, Yajnik. Right? If one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Shrama eva hi kevalam, samsiddhir haritoshana. This is the goal of life. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. We took the example of Khatwanga Maharaj, who had just one moment, and how he gave up everything and came and engaged in devotional service. The third thing that he spoke was Yasmin Tushta Jagat Tushtam. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities? Process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, the power of the senses, they're all useless. You may have advanced in all those things, but if you're not engaging in devotional service, it's useless. The example was of that Yajnik Brahmanas, the Yajna Patnis, right, who gave up. They didn't know, but they have understood. Vedischa sarve ahameva vedya. If we just satisfy Krishna, everything is satisfied. Everyone is satisfied, including our own self. Yasmin Tushta Jagat Tushta. These were the three things that we spoke about in today's verse. And okay, any other question in the comments? As I said, no, the biggest challenge that all of us have in this material world is a lack of attention. Attention span is very low. The recent research done by Microsoft, it says, if you see, in 2012, the attention span of people used to be 12 seconds. 12 seconds. And the recent study shows that's in 2016 or 17, it's 8 seconds. It is less than that the attention span of a goldfish. If you type attention span of goldfish versus human being, you can see this actual statistics. Attention span of goldfish is 9 seconds. It can stay in one place for 9 seconds. Human beings, because of this constant, exposure to social media, to phones and this thing, attention span is reduced. So 5th chapter, 6th chapter, what's going on? It's not just about this. Any field of life. Yesterday, recently I was at MIT, they were sharing this, that, when you give an article, which is an A4 size paper, for people to grasp that, it is very difficult now. Only in some short, the Twitter kind of a message, one small paragraph, or in that whole A4 size paper, they'll skim through and they'll see some important points like that they're seeing. They're not able to read, not able to, pay attention. Or making the work also that we do, most of the work that we do are repetitive, right? In our life also, whatever the problems, bugs, or whatever we solve or do, very repetitive thing. So we immediately jump into conclusion. Okay, this problem, this is the solution. This is the thing in my mind, I process it and I say, this is what I jump into the conclusion. We don't sufficiently spend time in absorbing. This is the biggest problem. Actually, if we really want to pray to the Lord, we should pray that this attention, this distractions of mind should go away. Then I'm able to relish this. This is not some dry book that one has to labor hard to understand. This is filled with wonderful nectarian instructions of Lord. This is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. How serious I should be when I'm reading this Bhagavad Gita. That is the goal, not just Bhagavad Gita. All our Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, everything is meant for that, to elevate our consciousness. And when we sit with that right mood in the class, at the beginning of the class, everything makes sense. Everything goes inside. Everything is falling in place. But when that is not there, no matter who the speaker is, no matter what he says, we look for some stories, something, and then we forget in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Some things remain in our mind that also, and if we don't contemplate sufficiently, it vanishes quickly. And then again, everything becomes zero. The real benefit of all these classes lies when we come together and hear and discuss, ask questions, and try to seek some more understandings than what we know and implement in our lives. Small things, if we implement them, then we make tangible progress in our devotion. So before we close for today's session, can I request all of you to come in front of your camera and raise your hands? We will chant once Hare Krishna mantra and close for today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grantra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Sai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.